The bank being run by the Hardens during this long period, a lot of the stock of the bank, the shares of the bank, were held by various members of the family. In late 1963, early 1964, some members of the family sought to dispose of their stock. They wanted to do it very quickly, did not accomplish that, and then they acquired control of the bank and voted the voluntary liquidation of the bank. A group of local businessmen decided to try to start another bank in place of the Second National. We had raised $450,000 in capital to start the bank. It was necessary to sell shares in the bank to raise that capital. And I always delight in a story that involved that. A local farmer who by that time was retired had been a customer at the Second National Bank, and I had known him along with many of the other customers. But the organizers of this new bank, Community National Bank, were each of them attempting to sell stock to help raise that $450,000. So the word was out that there was stock available for sale. Well, this retired farmer came in, and he was an older guy, and he had lost part of a hand in a corn picker, as was not uncommon in those days. And he came in and he said, "I want to buy $5,000 worth of your stock." Well, I said, I'm sorry, but we just about sold all the stock, and I don't think that there's $5,000 worth of stock still remaining. I think there's still some remaining, but I'm not sure about that much. But I'll be glad to see what we're going to all report in tonight, and I'll find out what all. He said, "Now, young man," he said, "I want to tell you a story about this." He said, "Back in the 1930s, I banked at a competitor bank. I had a mortgage on my farm. My wife and I farmed, and I borrowed the money to make the payment on the mortgage, and then when I got my crop in the fall, I paid that back. Well, I went into the bank where I was banking, and I wanted to borrow $5,000 to make the payment on my mortgage. My wife was with me, and they wanted a chattel mortgage on all the livestock to include my wife's chickens. Now, chickens were considered the wife's livestock, and the wife could sell eggs and chickens, and she made her own individual spending money that she could do with as she pleased from taking care of the chickens. Well, the farmer got very upset with the lender about that, and the bank insisted that they were going to take those chickens along with the rest of the livestock. Well, he just objected and got up to go out, and as they left, his wife said, "What are we going to do? We're going to lose the farm. The chickens aren't that important." He said, "I'm going over across the street and talk to Everett Hardin, my grandfather. He always invited me to come over and do business with him, and I'm going over and talk to him about it." So they went in. They sat down with my grandfather and explained the situation. My grandfather pulled out a blank note, filled it in for $5,000, put it in front of them, and said, "I'd like to have you each sign the note." which they did. The farmer said, well, what about the collateral, the chattel mortgage? My grandfather said, you two signed the note, you promised to pay it, that's good enough for me. So that was the story, and the farmer said, that saved my farm. That was $5,000. Today I'm retired. I have $5,000. I don't have to have it for anything. I don't owe anyone. I could do anything with that $5,000 I want, and I wanted to come in and buy some stock with it. Well, I don't know how much stock we were able to get for him, but we did get him some stock. I was sitting at the bank a few weeks ago. They have their annual meeting every year, and they get proxies in, and as the proxies come in, well, we check them off and all of this. Well, my son, we were having coffee down in the kitchen, and he was checking off the proxies that he'd received in the mail that day. And he got this one that he opened the envelope and got it out, and he looked at it and checked it off, and then he shoved it over at me. And I saw some extra writing on it. And it was signed by a shareholder of the name of Clark. But written above it was all of this in memory of my grandfather, Charles something Brown. And I looked at it, and Doug kind of looked at me, and I said, remember my story about Charlie Brown and the $5,000? Yeah. And I said, his daughter married a man by the name of Clark, and this would be her son, and he has inherited some of that stock, you see. And it's reminding us of this thing. But no, I think that when you go through 90 years and you do help a lot of people, of course, I always contended that the help worked both ways.